Hi, y'all, and welcome to tonight's video. Well, Brian Walshe is accused of one of the most horrific crimes known to mankind. The kind of allegation that just pulls you in by the throat and makes you wonder how any jury could ever sort out fact from the emotion created by what's happened here. From the very beginning, the Commonwealth has painted this as a cold, intentional killing followed by a very grisly cover up. They have put up the searches on the timeline, the tools, the trash, and they've told this jury this man, Brian Walshe, planned this, he carried it out, and he tried to erase every trace of it so he could get away with it. But today, Brian Walshe's team came out swinging, claiming that the prosecution is misleading the jury and leaving out critical facts. They say that the Commonwealth is putting out only the best facts and trying to keep the jury from knowing about the context. Now, today in the cross-examination of Trooper Connor Keefe, they walked the jury through a number of examples where the context actually did seem like it was changing the story. So the prosecution has accused Brian Walshe of murdering his wife of 10 years, Anna Walshe. In order to convict him on that, on first degree, they have to show malice aforethought, meaning that he intended, planned, even just for a moment, this crime. So Brian is using the fact that Anna's body has never been discovered. And he's pointing to that to say the state doesn't have enough proof to show that I murdered Anna. In fact, he says that Anna died of natural causes overnight. It was something he calls sudden unexplained death. She was in her prime, but she just suddenly died. There is a trail of Google searches, of text messages, surveillance video that is just outrageously damning. But there is one critical missing piece on the legal side for the prosecution, and that's, did Brian Walshe intend this crime? Was this malice aforethought? So now the question is whether the state has hurt itself in its zeal to convict Brian Walshe of first-degree murder. The defense is claiming that the Commonwealth has gone so far as to mislead the jury, that they are showing them searches taken out of context, timelines that got clipped down to just a few minutes. And if you looked at the whole picture, it's really different from what the Commonwealth is saying. So we're going to ask tonight the questions. Is the Commonwealth pushing too hard? Is it overplaying its hand? Is Brian Walshe, on the other hand, just grasping at straws? Is this all made up? So it was the spiciest day yet, I would have to say, at least legally speaking. And tonight we're going to be walking through all of it. I need to do a special shout out to a couple of people from last night who put in super chats on the late side. I didn't get to thank them. And this is, for those of you who have been here, this is our final day of Mods Week here on the channel, the first week in December. All super chats go to our wonderful mods, Marlon and Mama Pink. So special shout out to last night's super chats that I missed, which was Surviving Idaho and Beth Guide. They came in a little bit late. I didn't get to say thank you, but thank you very much. So, and I see we've already got some people. I'm going to hold off, but we've already got some people thanking over here in the super chat. I've got some people thanking Mama Pinks and Marlon. So we will be getting to all of that in due time. So today I want to plunge right into the testimony of Trooper Connor Keefe from the Massachusetts State Police. And I want to show you right away what the defense is saying about how the prosecution limited what the jury heard to just 3 minutes of Safari search history. And the defense says, if you had even gone out 20 minutes, 50 minutes, you would have seen something entirely different. When you pull out 3 minutes and try to pretend like that's the whole story, you mislead people. That's the defense argument. So we're going to take a listen to this. I do want to say this. One of the difficulties, I think, from the defense side is that it was really long testimony. I don't know if every juror was able to follow it because there were so many things like, and now on page 92, 452, entry number 50, it would just go on. And then finally they would get to the little point that they wanted to make. For our purposes here, I've tried to cut it down to just those points so that you can really follow the flow and understand what their argument is. So you may get a little bit more condensed version, in other words, than what the jury got. So this is, let's go ahead and get started.
Safari search history of the Apple iPhone 13 mini, and it ran a date range of December 25th, 2022 to January 4th of 2023. Who was it that decided then to limit the web history information included in Exhibit 161 to only 1 day for just a couple of minutes?
It was a decision by the prosecution team.
So my question was, do you ever take the time to explain to the district attorney assigned to the case you're working on with them that the web history would contain additional information in addition to the search history?
Yes.
Did you see any other text?
Notice they're not just saying that the prosecution pulled out just 3 minutes and showed it to the jury. That in and of itself is a pretty good argument by the defense, but they're also saying that the prosecution knew exactly what it was doing, that this witness even told them, yeah, I could give you more context around it. And the prosecution made a specific choice to show the jury only 3 minutes. Now, in general, that does, I think, look kind of bad as you move into what was actually being said, because this is a defendant accused of murdering his wife. And what we had seen from the prosecution was that the defendant, Brian Walshe, had actually done a search for plane crash that day and a search about his wife being dead. And this is just days before she disappears forever. So if you look at that really specifically and out of context, that's pretty serious, right? He's searching for Anna Walshe dead, and she's not dead. And nothing has happened to her. So why would he be doing that? But the defense walked the jury through a series of searches that cast an entirely different light on those searches. So I do need to do a shout out tonight to yesterday's first five. I forgot to recognize you, but shout out to American for Us, Irish Luna Princess, Oklahoma Gigi, Bama Queen, and Betsy Sue. And hopefully before the end of this, I'll get to our first five for tonight. But I want to now try sharing the screen with you. And am I worried that it won't work? Oh, ever so worried. But here, let's go ahead and see if it's clear and if you can see it. Actually, I want to take that out first so as not to confuse things. And now I'm going to share this screen with you. Okay, what you are seing is the timeline. We worked on that. It was about a week and a half ago that I had all the members there. I went through the timeline and asked them what they thought about it and what they were. Did they see any gaps? Let me know, things like that. But I have greatly increased this timeline based on what we're having at trial. And I really thought what was happening with this timeline was so important. You see right there in the red, those are the 3 searches that were in the 3-minute period. And I've even added one because they did talk about it later. That is what the jury heard about yesterday. They heard at 12:28 p.m. that there was a search on a device in Brian Walshe's home, Christmas Day plane crash. There was also a search, Jeff Chad Tishman Spire, that I believe would have been Anna's supervisor at her work. Her work was with Tishman Spire. And then thirdly, Anna Walshe found dead. That's what the jury heard. But let's look at this in the bigger context. This is what the defense was arguing about. On the 25th, and these are all happening on the 25th, actually starting even the day before on the 24th, Anna spent Christmas Eve in Washington, D.C. with her lover rather than coming home. She came home or was planned to come home the next day. She was supposed to be leaving on an early morning flight, and it got canceled. Weather was super bad and her flight got canceled. So Anna does not arrive home when Brian thinks she's going to arrive home. As it turns out, sometime around noon, it looks like she gets in the car and starts driving there because she can't get another flight. But here's the sequence of events. At 11:53 a.m., Brian texts Anna, hello. And right at the same time, Thomas asked if you are coming today. That's their child. And at 11:54 said, I haven't heard from you at all. So at 12:09, he then searches for the name of the person who sold them the real estate. William Fastow, DC Real Estate, sold them the townhome there in Washington, DC. Now, this is also the person with whom Anna is having an affair. So is, in fact, this something where he's looking this up because he thinks Anna might be with William? Or did he just happen to look him up because he was thinking of calling people in the area? In any event, at 12:15, there is finally a call between, I have that time wrong. Skip that one because I know that that's not the point. I know. Sorry. Brian called Anna at 12:15. It's 1 minute and 23 seconds, which I assume means he left a message. He then searches Anna Walshe, Tishman Speyer, her employer. Then he does Christmas Day plane crash, Jeff Chod, Tishman Speyer, and Anna Walshe found dead. He then searches Jeff Chod at 12:46. Only at 12:57 does he finally hear from Anna, and she says, my flight got canceled driving up. They then talk repeatedly all afternoon for hours on end as she is driving up. They just basically, it sounds like, Brian goes about his business and they just kind of hang out and talk on the phone while she's driving. There are some later searches about the Autobahn, and that was related to someone searching for apparently a place that sells cars. Anna wanted a Porsche, and it seems like Brian was searching for a used one she could purchase. They also, when she got home that night, they were talking about Zillow properties and looking forward, in other words, to what they would be doing. So when you take this in context, it does seem a lot less damning than what we heard yesterday. Searching Anna Walshe found dead, Christmas Day plane crash, put into context, suggests that he was worried that something had happened to her because she wasn't showing up. And so one of the questions you'll hear them ask in just a minute in the video is, they ask the question, so all of these searches happened before any of that, before he knew where she was. And I do think that actually makes quite the difference. So let's go ahead and we're going to pull that out, and I'm going to show the video again.
After the 12:57 text from Anna Walsh's phone saying, my flight got canceled driving up, did you see any text after that where there were any searches about plane crash or is Anna Walshe dead or anything like that? You didn't see anything like that, did you?
I would have to review them again, sir.
Are you aware of the fact, based on your involvement in the case, that Anna Walshe, her flight was canceled and she wound up driving up from DC to Cohasset?
On December 25th, sir?
Yes.
Yes.
And would it be accurate to say that during this time frame that we've just talked about, these three calls, that's when Anna Walshe is driving from DC to Cohasset?
Yes, that could be inferred from that.
So it appears from these records that during this time frame, Jen, that after her flight's canceled, and her phone is texting, the phone is signed to Brian Walshe saying, my flight was canceled, I'm on my way, that they're having no less than 3 phone calls between themselves, at least between their phones, as she drives home.
Yes.
Now,
Okay, so internet jury, let me know your thoughts. Does it bother you that that 1 minute or 3 minute period that was pulled out, that the entire context was not presented? Does that bother you? Is the defense making any progress with this? Let me know your thoughts in the chat, in the comments. Let me know what you're thinking. So I want to go ahead and thank some of the people. We have a bunch of gifts coming in for Mods Week for Mama Pink and Marlon. Betsy Sue has said, thank you for all you do, and I appreciate that very much. And Beth Guy, again, I had to thank her for last night having missed it, but thank you for your additional super sticker. Much appreciated. And Julie Ort, also thanking Mama Pinks and Marlon, and Teresa Heeman as well. We'll add a few more. Sky Goddess, thank you to the best mods. I'll show everybody's again on screen, don't worry. And Purple Daisy, thanks to the best mods on the LawTube channel. Totally agree with that. Very appreciative of both of them and all the work they do all year. Betsy Sue saying thank you to Mama Pinks and Marlon. One for each of them. Oh, that's very nice. That was very nice. Okay, Sun Devil 42 is sending in a super sticker for them, and Dial In for Mildred. I'm going to stop there. Dial In for Mildred has a really interesting point about the art fraud. We'll have to get to that later. That's a really good point. Dial In for Mildred. All right, so let's go back and I'll start running through these one at a time, hopefully on screen. But I want to say thank you so much for all of that. There was also a the defense, this was not the only piece of evidence that the defense made this point about. There was also a very weird search that was likely just 30 hours or so before Anna went missing, just based on the timeline. But the defense pointed out it was done in the middle of searches for things like buying a nice champagne for New Year's Eve. It just, when you pulled out the context, so the defense said, not that big a deal. Here, let's keep listening.
Now, yesterday, you were asked specifically by the government to testify to an entry at 8:38 p.m. on 12/30/2022. And you testified yesterday, and you were asked what that search was, and you stated to the jury, I'm good. Correct?
Yes.
And you didn't give any other context to that, correct?
Correct.
So, and I want you to think about, this is on, there were actually two entries, one on January 4th and one on 12/30. I think the one they actually talked about at the yesterday's testimony was the one on 1/4. And it did seem really weird because we know that Brian had by this time disposed of his wife's body. How do we know that? He says that. He's admitted that. And we also know that he was lying to police. So he types in, I'm good. Like, what does that even mean? Does that mean that he is trying to like self-soothe? Is he trying to make himself feel better? Like, what does that mean? It sounds so weird. But listen to what the defense says about this search, because yesterday, that's kind of how it was left hanging. At least that's what I thought.
As an investigator in this case, you are aware of the fact that there is a movie named I'm Good, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You would agree, wouldn't you, Trooper, that search that you were asked specifically about yesterday, I'm Good, at record 1069 at 8:38, that search regarding a movie occurred in between all this shopping, all these searches going on, having to do with champagne and wine and everything else, correct?
This occurred after the ones you had me read prior. I would have to look.
Why don't you look at page 72? Have you had a chance?
Yes, sir.
And once again, that's champagne-related searches.
Yes.
So it's fair to say, isn't it, Trooper, that when you were asked yesterday on direct examination and to specifically refer to that one search at number 1069, I'm Good, there's certainly nothing nefarious about someone conducting a search for a movie entitled I'm Good, correct?
Again, sir, I only know the context of this. I don't know the content the content, I don't know the intent behind it.
You would agree that these records that you have in Exhibit 161, you know, they have multiple searches related to movies and movie titles, correct?
I just know the I'm good one that you referenced, sir.
And as you look through those, there are multiple references to movies and movie clips, if you know.
Yes, there is, sir.
And you don't know who was searching for all those movies and things like that.
I do not.
And you wouldn't testify to the jury now that there's anything nefarious about someone conducting multiple searches for champagne or movie clips, is there?
Could you repeat that, sir?
There's nothing nefarious about someone searching for champagne or multiple movie clips during this period of time.
No.
So the defense is saying all this was a search about a movie. And the prosecution knew that the whole time, but they never told the jury that. And they never told them the context of how they were searching, or he was searching for champagne, or whoever was searching on the phone, but he was the only adult there in the house. But he was searching for champagne, and it was right around New Year's Eve, and they were planning to have a guest over. And there was nothing, says the defense, unusual about looking for a movie called I'm Good. And they knew it was a movie, and they never told the jury that. One of the worst things you can do as an attorney is to make the jury think that you are misleading them. Your credibility is unbelievably important when you're talking to the jury, because you want them to believe you, you want them to believe your witnesses, and you want them to believe the arguments that you're going to make at the end of the case. If in any way you give them the idea that you aren't telling them the truth, that you aren't being straight with them, or that you're misleading them, that is really super dangerous. It undermines your ability to advocate for your client. And so what is happening here is that potentially the prosecution is overplaying its hand. And I'm going to be asking you what you think about this. Do you think that's a problem? Or do you think that the prosecution is simply making a good argument, and then it's up to the defense to just show if there are weaknesses or problems in it? But what the defense wants to do is take it further than that. The defense wants to say the prosecution is hiding stuff from you, jury. You can't trust them. You can't believe them. Look at what they suggested and then look at the truth. And they're using this movie search as one way to do it. Now, it was very tough for the defense to get this witness to admit it. It took a lot of doing and arguing, and then he finally did pretty much admit that, as you heard. Yeah, it was a movie, and he had made other movie searches. He searched for the same movie twice, and that's pretty much the way it got left with the jury. But this is a super important witness for the state. You don't want this witness to look like he's hiding things. That's the last thing you want. Now, as I said, one difference is I'm able, when I show it to you, to shorten it and to cut out everything that's extraneous and just kind of run it like a narrative. And that's much easier to understand. It can be a lot harder for the jury to follow with all the legal stuff that has to get put in the middle. So another point that the defense made is that Anna and Brian were looking forward to New Year's Day when they were supposed to go for dinner. We heard that earlier from a witness who had gotten her nails done right next to Anna on New Year's Eve. And we also heard we heard the question asked of this
And
witness.
are you aware of the fact that in your investigation of the case that Mr. Walshe actually made a reservation for a New Year's Day dinner at the Nightshade Restaurant for himself and Miss Anna Walshe for New Year's Day?
I was not aware of that.
And
We're going to get into that Autobahn search that was done. And I want you to hear what the defense argument is on this as well.
you were specifically asked what that search was about, and you told the jury it was about Autobahn, correct?
Yes.
And you were asked nothing else about any of the related searches that go through record number 198 regarding Autobahn, correct?
Correct.
And some of those searches specifically state Autobahn USA, correct?
Yes.
What is Autobahn USA?
I believe it's a car website or
Okay,
vehicles, motor vehicles.
Okay. And Are you aware, based on your investigation of this case, that, and based on the content of the text messages between Anna Walsh and Brian Walsh, that Anna Walsh had asked Brian Walsh to buy her a Porsche?
Yes.
And are you aware of the fact that they talked about him buying her a Porsche in the text messages?
Yes.
And are you aware of the fact that he sent her pictures of a Porsche, in fact, 2 Porsches that were for sale?
Yes.
Are you aware of that?
Yes.
And are you aware of the fact that that took place on December 25th of 2022?
Yes, sir.
And you
Another area that he pointed out was the searches we heard about yesterday about the buildings, the Mazda building. I had no idea what that was about. I remember yesterday being really confused about that. They were talking about how Brian Walsh was searching for Mazda building in DC. Why? I don't know. Was he planning to go there? Was this a map search? Like, what was he doing? I was really confused about that. And I still don't know why the prosecution would be introducing this. Why would the Commonwealth want that? Especially because I'm about to tell you the story behind why he might have been searching for the Mazda building. So Brian Walsh made searches for the Mazda building on 12/29 and again on January 4th. So before Anna disappeared and after. That building, in fact, did figure quite large in Anna's life. Now, I don't know what it is exactly that he wanted to know about it or why he would have been searching it, but it does shed some light on whether, it does shed some light on why he would search it, but it doesn't really seem to have anything to do with the disappearance or the murder of Anna Walsh. But what had happened was, as reported in the Daily Mail, there was an outbreak of Legionnaire's disease from some area that had some kind of contamination. It was the pool, the spa, and that Anna had been in charge of the building on behalf of Tishman Speyer. So apparently it got really dirty. Maybe we'll do another little segment on this because it certainly sounded interesting, but it got to the point where, according to the article, Anna was ordering people to tear down signs where residents were trying to notify other residents of the potential dangers of Legionnaire's disease. And Anna said that that was inappropriate and they shouldn't be hung up. And there were accusations and allegations back and forth. So the Mazda building had been a hot topic for several months. And I don't know why the prosecution would want to put that in evidence. It doesn't seem like it helps the prosecution any. If anything, it sort of looks negative for Anna, but the jury, I think, will just be left confused. They're not getting that story explained to them about what had happened, and they're just hearing about these searches. I mean, I don't understand why it's in there, but here's what the defense went through.
I told this jury it was about the Mazda building.
The crossing building.
Oh, the crossing building.
Yes.
But you weren't asked for the context or anything of the sort. You just simply told the jury what the search query was, correct?
That's correct.
Is it fair to say that beginning at 804, page 54, on December 29th of 2022, at 9:47 p.m., that those searches are related to the Mazda building also?
Yes, sir. The Mazda building, crossing building. Correct.
So yesterday, you weren't asked about those searches that go back to December 29th. You were only asked about the search on January 4th. Is that correct?
No, I believe I was asked about those searches prior to.
All right, fine. Then I'm
Yes.
wrong.
That's a building in D.C., I believe, near where Anna Walsh works.
Are you unaware of the fact, Trooper, as an investigator connected to this case, that there was a Legionnaire disease outbreak in October of 2020 of those properties that were managed by Tishman Speyer?
I was not aware of that.
Are you aware of any letter that was issued by the D.C. Department of Public Health specifically to Ann Walsh in her capacity as Regional General Manager regarding that Legionnaire disease outbreak?
Objection.
Sustained.
So the jury heard a little taste of that, right? They know if they could put it all together that this had something to do with Legionnaire's disease and an outbreak, that there was a letter to Anna Walsh in her capacity as regional general manager, but they haven't even sort of started to get into what some of the allegations back and forth were by the tenants against Anna, by Anna against the tenants. They haven't gotten into any of that. But it opened the door for them to find out, the jury to find out a little bit about this. So why would the prosecution have selected those particular text messages to come in? I don't know, but the defense drove in through that and got in at least a little crack about what exactly had happened with this Legionnaire's disease outbreak. The jury will still be confused. That's my prediction, that they will not really understand what that was all about. I have no idea, though, why the prosecution would help the defense get any of that in. I don't think it's helpful for the prosecution at all. So the defense did a good job sort of wrapping this up as the main point, that all of these gruesome searches and all of the evidence that the government has happened after Anna was likely murdered and not beforehand. Here's what was said. Oh, that's where my article was. I was trying to find my, here, let's go back.
Running.
I'll go back just a tiny bit. So I knew I had that article somewhere and I can figure out what I had done with that. I'm going to make this super small. No, that's still not small enough. Would that be better? No, not at all. Am I making y'all dizzy yet? Let me know. Okay, well, I think we'll just have to go with that. That's probably about the best we're going to do. It's just a little clip. I wanted to show you the Daily Mail article, much longer article. Here's a little clip talking about some of the dispute between Anna and the people who were there and what was happening. And this was written after the fact. It wasn't, I mean, I don't know if the Daily Mail reported on it during the time, but this was written after Brian Walshe was accused of murdering Anna, and just kind of went through what some of the allegations were and what she had been accused of doing. Like she, for example, she, according to this article, told employees to pull down flyers. So I have no idea if anything came of that or what that was, but certainly it only came in as a result of what had happened with the prosecution asking for those. And then the objection to it was ultimately sustained. All right, so let's talk a little bit about those, the defense wrap up. We'll keep going. It should go right into it.
The searches running from the date of December 25th of 2022 up and including the end of December 31st of 2022, you saw no evidence of searches in the Safari search history regarding any searches for things like tools or searches suggesting how to dispose of a body or anything like that, correct?
I did not see any of those December 25th to the 29th.
Okay, and it's fair to say that based on your review of the search queries that were made and are contained in Exhibit 161, what you see for the search queries, it's fair to characterize them as there's multiple searches for various actors and actresses and music and movies, piano lessons, kinder care, and even a dog barking toy. Do you recall those?
I do, sir, yes.
This is what makes this case a little different from most of the ones that we cover. And that's how very little evidence the state has leading up to the crime. There was no discussion about it in advance. They don't have anything that kind of leads up to this other than a brief group of searches related to divorce. I'm going to tell you another couple of things I think they have in just a minute, but the defense is leaning into the idea that right up until Anna disappeared, it really looked like completely normal life for the Walshe household. If you could count one of the two being under house arrest for art fraud, then it looked like a pretty normal life for them. They're talking about all the kinds of normal things that a couple would talk about. There's nothing dramatic to suggest they're in very deep dispute and anything like what happened would happen. And that's what Brian's leaning into, hoping that he can convince the jury that the state has not proven that malice aforethought that we talked about. Let's keep listening.
In a case where you're investigating what happened, such as this, what happened to Anna Walsh, wouldn't it be important to you to look back beyond 12/25 of 2022 to see if there was any evidence in the iPhone Mini or the iPhone SE or the iPad or the MacBook, to see if there were any other entries that indicated that the person using those devices had planned to do any harm to Anna Walsh?
At the time, we do not have probable cause to expand that search warrant, sir.
Well, you certainly had, at the time, I'm sorry.
During that investigation.
There's a
I think that was a terrible answer because this is their whole job. And when it was known that the key question in the entire case would be intent, and really that was known all along, there was no reason they could not have gone back further and have found other information. Maybe they just assumed there wouldn't be any, or they would have seen them in the weeks leading up to this. And that set the stage for the fact that this witness now tells us who was the lead investigator from the Massachusetts State Police on this. It was none other than the Karen Reed famous Trooper Michael Proctor. Have we heard from him yet? No, but we have been told now, the jury has been told he was the lead investigator. So as the defense points out any weaknesses in the investigation, then they're making it and easier for them as they link it to Trooper Proctor. Now, Trooper Proctor was badly disgraced and ultimately fired for the botched Karen Reed investigation. So there was another little bit of information they got out of the text messages. Remember that Brian claims that Anna had this sudden death episode. Well, was she sick beforehand? Here's what they got in.
Series of texts that began at 7:10:59 a.m. on page 14, and the phone assigned to Anna Walsh says, "Will work from home today," correct?
Correct.
And then there's a text that follows 3 minutes later from the phone assigned to Brian Walsh, says, "Feel better."
Correct.
And I mean, from reading those texts, it would suggest that Anna Walsh wasn't feeling well and she was working at home, correct?
Yes.
So right after that, they also went into the fact that Brian then texted Anna, "I love you." She texted back, "Love you too." So again, things weren't looking like they were at a stage when one is about to murder the other. That seems really unlike what's happening here. Now, and that was a key theme of the defense cross-examination, is that until the moment she disappeared, Brian and Anna were talking about very ordinary things that looked toward the future and their future lives together.
We did in extracting the data from the iPhone Mini. We see that all of those data, when looked at, they help frame a picture of communications about buying property and selling property, shopping for a Porsche, trading pictures between each other, all in the time period encompassing December 25th, leading up to December 31st of 2022. Isn't that right?
This shows communication between Brian and Anna Walsh from December 25th through December 30th. We only went to the 30th, sir.
And to be fair, it shows communications between phones, data.
Yes.
Time.
Text message, phone calls, communication between those two devices during that time period.
And remember that the judge in this case has suggested that maybe the Commonwealth intends to argue that Brian Walshe was watching Anna's texts. And that's how he came to suspect that she was having an affair with William Fastow. But the defense points out, well, his phone had no messages at all between Anna and Fastow. So how was he doing that? How was he looking at that? Here's what the witness said.
We did not find anything on the Apple iPhone 13 mini of any Facebook Messenger postings between Anna Walshe and a person named William Fastow.
Specifically Facebook Messenger
Yes,
between those two on the iPhone 13 mini?
yes.
Not that I recall.
Messages between Anna Walshe and William Fastow appearing on the phone assigned to Brian Walshe. That would be pretty important evidence, correct?
Yes.
And you would do everything you could as a digital forensic specialist to try to find that, wouldn't you?
Yes.
I documented it.
And that is definitely pretty important. I'm going to pull this out for just a minute and talk to y'all. So that would obviously, as they're saying, be really important. It would be very important to know that there have been these communications and Brian Walshe had been carefully watching it, had been following it behind the scenes, and he knew this was going on. It would suggest a whole line of motive that right now the state hasn't been able to prove. So this witness was very, very important, I think. He put in the most damning evidence you can imagine. And there was great cross-examination on the one point that is weak in the prosecution's case. And that's the question of that intent, the malice of forethought. I want to finish up the rest of the day real quickly, show you just a couple of other scenes from that. And then I want to sort of do an overview and talk about what all this means. Is Brian Walshe about to skate or what's happening here? We'll get into all of that. I do want to say a thank you to some more people. I really appreciate all these gifts for our mods. Much, much appreciated. I think I stopped with Dial M for Mildred last time. So I want to thank Jacqueline for her super sticker and Terry Daly, who is a brand new member. We're so glad to have you. Good. And let's see, I've got to read it. Kiki Cat. Okay. Oh, what a nice, generous gift. The mods will love that. Thank you so much. And by the way, you have to stick around to the end. Oh, and I've forgotten to say, hit the like button, haven't I? Would you please hit the like button now that, we're long into the video, but please do. I would really appreciate it. But you are about to see at the very end, I'm going to show you a picture that Marlon has prepared for us of some of the things that you have purchased with your gifts for Jerry, the most famous dog in the Netherlands. That is Marlon's dog. For those of you who follow the channel, you know all about Jerry. All right. So thank you, Kiki Cat, for your very generous gift. And Jenda Bomb saying, let's show them all some love for the mods. Last day of Mods Week. And I very much appreciate that, Jenda Bomb. She's been gifting and watching all week, and I appreciate that. So let's talk about what happened the rest of the day. That was the bulk of the day. It was a short day, about 4 hours, but there were two other very pivotal witnesses. We only got to the bit of one, but we got to a lot of the other. It wasn't long, but it was pretty important. Heather Sullivan, retired now from the state police, talked about being sent out on January 9th to a dumpster in Swampscott. We've heard about this before. We've seen some pictures of the dumpster, of the compactor next to it. And they literally picked these things up and took them back to the warehouse at the police station. And I told you before that there was a huge mountain of garbage. And I wanted you to see what I'm talking about. And then we'll talk about what happened next. So let's add this back and you will see what I am talking about.
Before they dumped the trash, and then individually they started with one of the trash receptacles, dumped that and spread it out so we could go through it and search it.
So I wanted you to see that whole area back there piled up high is all garbage. And they went through all of that. And what they found was pretty disturbing. Here is just one of many images that we saw with some other witnesses.
Is this one of the bags, contents of the bags that you had to spread out and do further documentation of?
That was some of the contents in one of the bags, yes.
And just look at that. I'll pull it back. Look at those. I mean, a hammer. There were shears, a couple of types. They called one snips and the other shears. There was a hacksaw. There was a hatchet. Just appalling kind of stuff. And that was shown to the jury. I'm going to talk in just a minute about how I think that might affect the jury. So hang on for that. But very dramatically then, and I think that's the end of our video clip. So very dramatically, the witness pulled these items out of these large brown bags in the courtroom to show the jury. Pulled out snips, pulled out a hacksaw, pulled out a hatchet, shears, and a measuring cup, which was interesting. And it had dark powder in it. And they made a point to have her say, well, it wasn't like that when she first saw it. That seemed to be probably fingerprint powder as they were looking for fingerprints on this measuring cup. It was incredibly powerful, I think. I think it is a lot of impact that the jury is going to be seeing. The last witness of the day, just only partway through him, was Richard Atkinson. He is an MD working in the office of the chief medical examiner there in Boston. He's a forensic pathologist. Now, normally, of course, he would do an autopsy and come in and talk about what the cause of death was, what the manner of death was based on his autopsy. Well, that's not possible here, right? Because the body is missing. And so he talked about examining items to determine if any human tissue is on them. And we have seen so far, the first piece of evidence introduced with him was photographs of blue and white carpet pieces that he had examined. So we will find out on Monday more about what he learned when he examined those and some of the other things that he probably examined. This has been a fascinating day because there were in this whole trial, there are two competing themes here, two very competing ideas. On the one hand, the evidence here about dismemberment, about throwing out the body of a spouse, I don't think the jury even conceivably could just let this go. I don't see that happening. The evidence of all that happened after Anna Walshe apparently died, at least everyone admits that, died, that the evidence is just overwhelming after that point. And I just think, kind of picture yourself, how hard it will be for Brian Walshe to survive cross-examination when there is so very much to cross-examine him about. I mean, I think if I were cross-examining him, I would take that picture of all of those tools that you saw, and I would get a big blow up. And I would, walk him through. So what'd you do with this? And what'd you do with that? And then I would put it all together and have a question like, so, okay, let me get this straight. You admit you used this hacksaw to do some unspeakable thing to your wife, and these shears to do Lord knows what, he'll say. And I would go through all of those. I would say, you did each of these things. Is that correct? And you now admit that because you've admitted to this crime. And then you took those pieces and you stuffed them in a black plastic garbage bag so no one could see inside, and you tossed them into miscellaneous apartment complex dumpsters all around town. Apartment complexes where you were hoping no one would notice and they get picked up quickly. Is that correct? And some of those questions might be objected to. I think most of those would probably be pretty legitimate, but it almost doesn't even matter if they get objected to, because the fact of the matter is those are questions that need to be answered, and the jury is already having all those questions. You're just putting them together for the jury in a form that the jury would ask if they could. I mean, if they could, they would ask the question, in your view, was that the very best burial your wife deserved? Was that the best your kids deserved? Was to have your wife be cut into pieces and thrown away into garbage dumpsters? Is that what you thought was the right thing to do? And then, so all of that, overwhelming, right? Absolutely overwhelming. And then you look at the other side, because this case is, legally speaking, all about that malice aforethought, that intent. So and let's see, I think I have the statute here. let's see if I do. I'm going to unshare that and go into my slides for you. Yep, there we go. But I'm not seeing, there we go. Okay, so here's the Massachusetts statute for murder one. And we'll see if I can read it. It's really far away. We have to lean in. That murder committed with deliberately premeditated, deliberate, knew about it, premeditated, thought about it in advance, malice aforethought, or with extreme atrocity or cruelty, or in the commission or attempted commission of a crime, punishable with death or imprisonment for life. So these are what they are going to be leaning into and trying to prove, and have been throughout, is this malice aforethought that we've been talking about. For me, the evidence so far that we have of the lead up is just shockingly weak. It's so almost bizarre that this came out of what seems like nowhere. There were little hints, but not a lot, frankly, in what we've seen so far from the prosecution. To me, the two biggest pieces of evidence that we've heard are the search about whether a dishwasher will wash HIV off a knife. We don't really know what that means, but it suggests that a knife was involved there, that might be something that was important. And the second thing is the amount of blood, because it wasn't something that didn't have an effect on the environment. It seems like it was more dramatic, more violent than that. And we have some hints of that. The possible use of a knife, the blood, that doesn't fit with what Brian Walshe says about this sudden death. That would be at least a moment in time it took perhaps to pick up the knife. And so, but I do think the prosecution does not want to overplay its hand. They don't want to make it look like they're trying to snow the jury. They need to be very upfront about the evidence. They don't want to try to pretend a piece of evidence is great if it's only okay, because they can hand away a point to the defense. And I don't think they want to do that. Credibility is too important for them to do that. And once a jury even thinks it's being misled, they can turn on the side that they think is not telling them the truth. So I want to know, what do you think? Because this is a really, really hard case, I think. So are you thinking that the intent is just not strong enough? Or are you thinking that the evidence is so bad and so overwhelming that nobody is going to overlook it? And so I'm trying not to say my opinion. Hopefully, I'm arguing both sides fairly, but I would like to know what you think between those two. So what's coming next for the trial? Well, back at it on Monday. The judge told the jury today that it's moving efficiently. She thinks it will end sooner than the worst expectation, which would be, she had initially said, I think 3 to 4 weeks of trial. Now she's saying a total of 3 weeks, and that's just to put in the evidence. In other words, 2 weeks more than what we've already had. We've had 1 week. So 2 more weeks, that closes the evidence. And then I don't know if that counts closing arguments, but it does not count the jury's deliberation if that takes a substantial amount of time. So that I mean, my guess, it's moving pretty fast. I'd be surprised if it went much past next week. But the judge said 3 weeks is what is now being planned for. So we'll see more about that coming up. Oh, we've got a ton more gifts in here for the mods. That's fantastic. I'm so excited. Okay, let's, Gina G is thanks to our mods and love to Jerry. Oh, I've got to show you the picture. I promised. So let's share the screen. And Marlon, of course, has done a full presentation for us. Check that out. Jerry and the Lawyerly channel, and you've got all the pictures of Jerry. Now, you need to know what that thing in the middle is, because it looks like it's just, I don't know, dark brown or maybe black on the side. That is a raincoat. But when light shines on it, what you see is the picture to the right over there, this multicolor sparkle thing. Marlon sent me a video of him shining a light on it and just laughing hysterically. Oh, I'm not showing that. I've got to pull up. Y'all are all wondering, what am I talking about? Okay, let's Now, let's add this to the stage. There we go. There it is. Lawyer, the lawyer Lee Jerry and that you see is the star Jerry. And you can see he is wearing the raincoat that you purchased for him. It is a raincoat of many colors for Jerry. And anyway, it's pretty awesome. Okay. So we'll leave that up for just a minute so you can get a look at that. And let's see, where were we? I think I thanked Jinda Bomb and Gina G. Gossip, Rumor, and Innuendo saying thanks for all that the mods do. I'm going to be on the Gossip, Rumor, and Innuendo show on Sunday at 2. So everybody show up for that. I'm looking forward to that. And we'll be talking a bit more about the Brian Walshe case. We'll be talking about that. So please come for that. We definitely want to get Kathy above 30,000, and I think we can do it. She is so close. I think we can do it on Sunday. So show up on Sunday at 2:00, and we will work on that for her. Okay, Lorena, thank you so much for your gift to the mods. That is a very generous, very nice gift. I know they're excited. Jerry is excited too. Mama Pinks also has numerous dogs. She's probably very upset with us that we aren't showing her dog. But Marlon sent me this picture. So there you go. Mama Pink, send me your picture. Okay. Jebby Camphor, also a gift for Marlon and Mama Pinks. And Alex, a very nice super sticker for our mods. Also very, very appreciated. So let us pull that out. I'm I'm already big. I don't have to change that. And I want to head over and answer some of your questions. And we kind of had a question earlier from Dial M for Mildred. So I'll go ahead and put that up and let's talk a little bit about this art fraud. Now, Brian was he had actually pled guilty at this point to federal art fraud. It was a claim against him in federal court for art fraud. And he was actually in that particular case waiting for sentencing. He thought he should be out, no sentence at all, no jail time. And that was what he was pushing for. He wanted to pay restitution as little as possible and then just be able to maybe be on probation or home arrest or something. The whole family was on hold waiting for this because the prosecution was saying he needed a prison sentence. If he got that, even if he didn't get that, he had to stay in Massachusetts waiting for this. He couldn't go down to DC where Anna had this great new job. So the whole family is on hold waiting to see what happens in this federal case. And as part of that, the reason he wasn't in prison yet, even though he had pled guilty, was in part because he was taking care of the kids. He was the primary caregiver, which meant that he had to be there in Massachusetts. And so did the kids because he was the caregiver. That was sort of the basis of it. All right. So I do agree with you that he is creating, or to some degree, at least he was using the fact that he was a caregiver. And so that actually was a very important part of it. Okay. So let's head over here and see what the questions are. And I'm way behind. I'm not even going to go back up. I don't think as far. Uh-oh. What did I get an X for? Oh, you don't see. That was just about not seeing Jerry. Okay. I got that fixed. So I know I'm good on that. Okay. All right. I wondered what that X was when I just saw that. All right. There we go with our questions. All right. Irish Luna Princess wanting to know, how can the prosecution show premeditation with no texts or searches prior to the crime? Irish Luna Princess, legally speaking, it's a little hard. They have a few pieces of evidence that can kind of imply that. For example, the fact that Anna was having an affair, and there were apparently 2 places in the interviews where Brian seemed to reference a text that Anna sent to her lover, William Fastow, on New Year's Eve. So I think they'll kind of argue from that. They may argue from the knife information or evidence that we talked about tonight, that search. They may argue from the very brief search he did on divorce, but it's not a lot. I think though that it's going to be really hard for the jury to walk away with anything less than first-degree murder, given the searches that happened afterwards. There are 2 wildly competing ideas pushing in opposite directions here. So I appreciate what you're saying and understand that as well. Okay, Jennifer. Jennifer Zuccari is asking, why do you think the tools look like so brand new and never used? I would expect for some of them to either be broken or bent. Well, that's a really good point. I would like to see a close-up of that. Now that you mentioned that, that is an excellent point, Jennifer. I would like to know that too. They do look pretty new. They don't look heavily used. Maybe they were washed in the dishwasher. Oh, gosh. I can't even think about that, but that's what that knife search was about. I can't even. Oh, my gosh. Okay. I may have to end early just from the thought. All right. Marlon is giving a woof out from Jerry to Princess Spencer, Mama Pink's very beloved dog. And so Princess Spencer is probably the most famous dog in all of California, thanks to Mama Pink. So we'll have to work on that too. All right. Okay, I'm still kind of disconcerted from what I was talking about earlier. I can't even handle that. Okay. TMTB, how important would lots of blood in the bedroom be? Well, I think that'd be pretty darned important. I don't think there'd be a good explanation for it. Like, what is his explanation going to be on the stand? And I do think he has to take the stand for the pieces of blue and white carpet with all the blood on them. What is that about? What is he going to say? Very curious, very curious. It definitely would not fit. If he doesn't have an explanation, it doesn't fit with this sudden death thing. So we will find out, but I think he's going to have a lot of explaining to do. BJ asking, why hasn't he told anybody where the body is? Even if decomposed, he certainly put it somewhere. Okay, BJ, I don't really think the body is anywhere anymore. I think it was thrown out. It was taken and the dumpsters were taken. Many of them were incinerated. And I don't think there is anything for him to tell about to try to get some kind of special deal. I don't think he has anything left to bargain with. Okay. All right. I'm looking for the questions, and I've got to go back over here. That was Marlon's. I got that. Okay. Sunset Gazing has been a member for 13 months. That is awesome, and thinks that Jerry is very, very cute. Of course, we all agree with that. Of course. Thank you very much. Long Island Hillbilly hopes the prosecution will use my cross-examination. Oh, I hope so too. That would be very exciting. That would be a lot. That would be great. Please, prosecution, listen to that. I think they will think of it on their own, and I think they will have a great cross-examination. It really, I don't see how it can be anything short of remarkable. The whole cross-examination is going to be just edge of your seat. Have to listen to every word. There's no other way around it. Pro Gamer thinks not beyond all doubt legally. Yes, this is on the legal side. This is a tougher case. This is Norfolk County in his situation, out on bail, paranoid of not being believed if he called 911. That's exactly what I think he's going to argue. Although it is hard to imagine disposing of the body as a solution and in such a gruesome way. But Pro Gamer is exactly laying it out, exactly what I think he's probably going to say, which is, I was terrified of losing my potential deal in the art fraud case. I knew that if this happened, I was going to go to jail, and I just was trying to protect my children because now she had died suddenly and I was going to be going to jail. Who's going to take care of the children? So I was trying to protect them, and it wasn't my fault. And I just thought, I'll get rid of the body. And once I had done some of that, I realized how stupid it was, but there was nothing I could do to backtrack. I bet that's what he argues. All right. Well, I will look forward to seeing everybody Sunday at 2. But most importantly, I want to see you all here next week because it is going to be an incredible week for the trial. So we'll be going live. I don't know every night. I'm not totally sure about that yet. But we're definitely going to be going live most nights. Probably not 7. I'm having to push it out to about 7:15 just because of getting ready, watching the trial, and being ready at night. But we will go live many, many nights next week. We will find out, and I look forward to seeing everybody.